My name is Emily. I'm 22 years old. And today, my life changed at a family picnic. I stood there holding a paper plate, trying to smile, when Rachel's voice cut through the air. My older sister. My shadow. My tormentor. She laughed first. Then the cousins joined. Even my father chuckled under his breath. Every eye was on me. I felt the ground shift, my face burning. She had chosen the one thing I never wanted anyone to know, and she shouted it like it was a joke. The sound of their laughter still echoes in my head. But I swear one day, they'll regret this. Tell me, what do you think Rachel said about me? Drop your guesses in the comments. Like this if you've ever been underestimated. And subscribe if you love seeing underdogs rise again. I couldn't shake the sound of their laughter. Even hours later, when the sun had dipped low and the picnic tables were nearly empty, the echo of it clung to me like smoke. Rachel's voice was sharp in my head, cutting deeper than I wanted to admit. It wasn't the first time she had humiliated me. It wasn't even the worst. But it was the moment I realized she'd never stop. I kept replaying the scene, trying to steady my breathing. My cousins' faces, red from laughter, their eyes darting toward me with that familiar mix of pity and amusement. The way Dad had smirked like it was harmless fun. And Rachel standing tall, arms crossed, wearing that smug grin she'd perfected years ago. She always knew where to strike, how to dig into the one part of me I prayed no one would touch. But this time, something inside me cracked that I thought back to when it all began. Growing up, Rachel was the golden child. She never had to fight for attention, it was simply given to her. Straight A's, varsity sports, friends that seemed to worship her. Every teacher knew her name. Every relative adored her. At birthdays, her gifts were bigger, brighter, wrapped with care. Mine were afterthoughts. Socks, sometimes a card with a crumpled bill inside. Mom used to say Rachel was going places. She would glance at me and add, "Emily, you'll find your way too." But her tone always made me feel like she didn't believe it. Like my way would be smaller, dimmer, something worth less. By the time I hit 16, I knew I wasn't Rachel. I wasn't the girl who made heads turn. I was the one bussing tables at the local diner, scrubbing ketchup stains off Formica, saving every tip to pay for school supplies. While Rachel posted pictures from cheer competitions and prom nights, I was counting coins in a jar, wondering if I had enough for gas. I remember one night vividly. I had just gotten off a late shift. My uniform smelled like grease and burnt coffee. My feet throbbed. I walked through the door hoping no one would notice me. Rachel was in the living room, surrounded by friends, showing off her new designer purse. She caught sight of me, my hair pulled back, shirt stained, exhaustion written all over my face. And she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Careful not to drip burger grease on the carpet, Em." The room erupted with laughter. Her friends glanced at me the way people look at roadkill, curious, grossed out, but glad it's not them. I forced a smile, walked past them, and locked myself in my room. I cried that night, silently, so no one would hear. But that was just one of many nights. Rachel had a gift for turning my hard work into a joke, for making my struggles a punchline. And the worst part, everyone let her. Dad would shake his head with a chuckle and say, "That's just Rachel being Rachel." Mom would remind me to not take it so seriously. My cousins would laugh along, then whisper apologies when no one was watching. No one ever stopped her. No one ever defended me. So I learned to swallow it, to carry the weight alone. But the picnic felt different. That day, Rachel didn't just embarrass me. She stripped me down in front of the entire family. My aunts, uncles, cousins, even distant relatives who barely knew me. She made sure everyone remembered my weakness, my failure, the thing I had worked so hard to keep hidden. And they laughed. I told myself to let it go, to pretend it didn't matter. But when I went to grab a soda near the cooler, I froze. Rachel was standing a few feet away, her voice low but sharp, speaking to two of our cousins. She didn't know I was behind the tent flap. "She'll never be anything in life," Rachel said. Her tone was casual, like she was stating a fact, like she was predicting the weather. "Emily's just nothing. Always has been, always will be." The words punched me in the chest. I couldn't breathe. My hand trembled, the soda can slipping from my grip and clattering to the ground. They all turned toward the sound. Rachel's eyes met mine for a split second, and instead of shame, I saw something else. Satisfaction. She wanted me to hear it. And that's when I knew Rachel wasn't just cruel. She wanted to destroy me. Rachel was always the shining star. I had known that since childhood, but the months after the picnic made it clearer than ever. Everywhere I turned, she was praised. Everywhere I went, I was invisible. I remember one Sunday morning, walking into church late after pulling a double shift. My hands still smelled faintly of bleach from cleaning tables, and I was too tired to notice my hair was a mess. I slipped into the back pew quietly, hoping not to draw attention. But Rachel was already there, standing at the front with her choir group, her hair glowing under the lights, her voice carrying across the room. When the service ended, people swarmed around her, telling her how gifted she was, how proud she must make Mom and Dad. No one even looked at me. Afterward, I walked out alone. My shoes felt too heavy for my feet. That was always the way of things. Rachel thrived while I struggled, and people acted like it was the natural order of the world. At home, it was worse. Rachel had just landed a new job at a law firm downtown. She strutted around in crisp suits and heels, the click of them echoing across our wooden floors like a drumbeat announcing her success. Mom beamed whenever Rachel came home from work. She'd ask questions about her day, lean in like Rachel's every word was gold. Dad would pour her a glass of wine, proud as if he had gotten the job himself. Meanwhile, I was still stuck at the diner. I worked extra hours, tried to save, tried to figure out a way out. But every time I came home in my greasy uniform, I felt smaller. Mom barely glanced up. Dad just grunted. If they asked about my day at all, it was a lazy, busy night, before turning back to whatever Rachel was saying. The contrast made me ache. It was like Rachel and I lived in two different worlds under the same roof. Hers was polished, glowing, full of opportunity. Mine was cramped, grimy, invisible. And Rachel loved it. She lived for the spotlight, and she made sure I saw just how much brighter her world was. One evening, she cornered me in the kitchen while everyone else was in the living room. She leaned against the counter, her suit jacket still on, her makeup perfect even after a long day. "You know," she said casually, "I can't imagine working somewhere like that diner forever. The smell alone would drive me insane. But I guess for some people, it's all they can manage." She smirked and walked away, leaving me clutching the dish towel so tightly it nearly tore in half. I told myself not to rise to it, to let it go, like always. But something inside me simmered hotter each time. The simmer turned into a boil at family dinner. It was a Friday night, the kind where Mom cooked a big meal and everyone gathered around the table. The dining room smelled of roast chicken and garlic bread. Glasses clinked, laughter filled the air, and Rachel sat at the head of the table like she owned it. She launched into a story about her week, how her boss praised her, how quickly she was moving up, how co-workers envied her talent. Everyone leaned in, hanging on to her every word. Even my cousins, who had come over for the evening, stared at her like she was some kind of celebrity. I sat there quietly, picking at my food, waiting for someone to ask me about my day. No one did. Halfway through the meal, Rachel turned toward me, her eyes glinting. "So, she said loudly enough for the whole table to hear, "how's life at the diner? Any big promotions? Did they finally make you head wiping tables?" The table erupted with laughter. Even Dad chuckled, shaking his head. My cousins smirked into their plates. Heat flooded my face. My chest tightened. My fork clattered against the plate as I tried to steady myself. I wanted to disappear. But then, something inside me snapped. I pushed my chair back and stood up. My voice trembled at first, but it grew sharper with each word. "Why do you do this, Rachel? Why do you always have to tear me down? Every time I try to live my life, you twist it into a joke. You act like I'm nothing, and everyone just lets you." The room went silent. Forks froze mid-air. Mom's eyes widened, Dad frowned. Rachel leaned back in her chair, her lips curling into a smirk. For a brief moment, I thought maybe she'd be embarrassed. Maybe, just maybe, she'd back down. Instead, she tilted her head, studied me, and then delivered the slap I didn't see coming. Not with her hand, her words. "You want the truth, Emily," she said softly, but loud enough for every ear at the table. The reason no one takes you seriously is because there's nothing to take seriously. You're just there, existing. And deep down, you know it. The words hit me harder than a punch. The table stayed silent, no one daring to move. And in that silence, I realized something chilling. Rachel wasn't just mocking me anymore. She was erasing me, piece by piece, in front of everyone. And they were letting her. After that dinner, I felt hollow. Rachel's words played in my head on repeat, each syllable carving itself deeper. You're just there, existing. It hurt worse than the laughter at the picnic. Because she didn't just mock me that night. She defined me. And no one at that table challenged her. Not even Mom. Not even Dad. Their silence was an agreement. I went back to the diner the next morning, my uniform stiff with the smell of detergent. My body moved on autopilot, refilling the coffee, taking the orders, wiping the counters, but inside I was still back at that table, standing in the ashes of whatever dignity I had left. And then, in the middle of that endless loop, something unexpected happened. He walked in. Mr. Carter. I didn't know his name then, just recognized his face. He was a regular, one of those quiet types who came in a few times a week, always alone, always sitting by the window with a notebook. He was older, maybe late 40s, with graying hair and sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. That morning, he asked for his usual black coffee. But as I set the cup down, he said something different. You're better than this place. I froze. No one had ever said that to me before. Not in that tone. Not like they believed it. I gave a nervous laugh. Trust me, I've heard that line from enough customers who just want a bigger smile with their eggs. But he shook his head. I'm not saying it to flatter you. I'm saying it because I watch. You don't just work. You manage. You run circles around this place. You think no one notices, but I do. For the first time in months, my chest didn't feel so heavy. That conversation became the first of many. He started sitting in my section more often, asking about my shifts, about my life. He listened, really listened, in a way that made me uncomfortable at first because I wasn't used to it. But slowly, it became something I looked forward to. One afternoon, after the lunch rush, he leaned across the table. I run a small real estate office in town. We need someone organized, dependable. It's not glamorous, but it's better pay, better hours. And I think you'd be good at it. My hands trembled so badly I nearly spilled the coffee pot. I couldn't believe it. Someone was offering me a chance. A door out of the diner. A chance to rewrite who I was. I wanted to scream with joy. But instead, I just whispered, "Are you serious?" "Completely," he said, smiling. "Think about it. Come by next week." That night, I walked home lighter than I had in years. For once, I had something Rachel didn't control. Something just for me. I didn't tell my family. Not yet. I wanted to keep it mine. A secret, a fragile spark I could nurture before the world tried to snuff it out. But secrets in my family never lasted long. Rachel found out. I don't even know how. Maybe she overheard me on the phone with Mr. Carter. Maybe Mom mentioned something. Maybe Rachel just had a sixth sense for anything that made me happy. All I know is one evening, as I was heading upstairs, Rachel's voice stopped me cold. "So," she said, leaning in the doorway to my room, "heard you've been playing dress-up. Real estate, huh? Cute." My stomach dropped. I tried to brush past her, but she blocked the way. Her smirk was sharp as glass. "You really think someone like you can handle that? Emily, you can barely handle waiting tables without crying in the back room." "I can do it," I said quietly, forcing myself not to look away. She laughed. Not a casual laugh. A cruel one, deliberate, meant to cut. "You'll screw it up. And when you do, don't come crying to me." "Actually, I do. Because watching you fail is the only entertainment I get these days." I slammed my door in her face, but my hands were shaking. For days, I tried to ignore her. Focus on preparing. Mr. Carter gave me some paperwork, told me to come in for a trial week. I ironed my clothes, borrowed Mom's old blazer, even practiced answering phones in the mirror. For once, I felt like maybe my life was about to start. And then, the sabotage came. It was my second day at the office.
Things were going well.
I had organized a pile of files no one had touched in months, and Mr. Carter seemed genuinely impressed. I started to believe I could fit here, that I belonged. But when I went to grab my bag at lunch, I found something inside it.
My old diner name tag.
At first, I thought maybe I had forgotten to take it out.
But then I saw the sticky note attached.
Back to where you belong. Ah.
My blood ran cold. She had been in my room. She had gone through my things.
And she was reminding me, even here, that I would never escape her shadow. I tore the note to pieces, shoving it deep into the trash.
But the damage was done.
My confidence cracked. All afternoon, I fumbled calls, misfiled paperwork, dropped pens. Mr. Carter noticed, though he tried to be kind about it. By the time I got home, Rachel was waiting in the kitchen, leaning against the counter like she had been rehearsing her lines. "So," she said, sipping her iced tea, "how's the big job going? Did they fire you yet?" I stared at her, unable to answer. She didn't need confirmation. She could see it on my face. Her grin widened. Knew it. Some people just aren't meant to rise. Don't take it personally, Em.
You're the background character.
Always have been. The humiliation burned so hot in my chest I could barely breathe.
But she wasn't finished.
She leaned closer, whispering so only I could hear.
And the best part,
no matter how many times you try, I'll always be the one to pull you back down. Because deep down, you're terrified I'm right. Her words slithered through me, wrapping tight around my throat. I wanted to scream. I wanted to hit her, to shove her, to do anything to silence that smirk.
But instead, I stood frozen.
And that's when I realized, this wasn't just about cruelty anymore. Rachel wasn't mocking me for fun.
She was hunting me,
making sure I never climbed high enough to see life beyond her shadow. And as her laughter echoed in the kitchen, I felt something shift inside me.
Something sharp.
Something dangerous. Because if she was going to keep dragging me down, then one day I was going to drag her with me. I didn't sleep much after Rachel's sabotage. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that sticky note in my bag, her handwriting mocking me, taunting me, reminding me I could never escape. By the end of the trial week, Mr. Carter tried to be gentle, but the message was clear. Maybe this isn't the right fit, Emily. I nodded, pretending I understood, but inside I was crumbling. Walking out of that office for the last time felt like stepping back into a cage I thought I had broken out of. I had tasted freedom, just a sliver, and she ripped it away from me. Back at the diner, my shifts felt heavier. Customers blurred together, their voices blending into one long, endless noise. My body moved like a machine, but my spirit wasn't there anymore. Every spilled drink, every impatient sigh, every long night waiting for buses in the cold, it all felt unbearable. Then the second hit came. The apartment. I had been splitting rent with a coworker, Jenna. She was sweet, messy, and never on time with her half, but she made me laugh on the worst nights. One Friday evening, I came home to find the front door wide open, boxes everywhere. Jenna was shoving her clothes into a suitcase. "What's going on?" I asked, my chest tightening. She looked up, guilt painted across her face.
"I'm moving in with Derek. He asked me last night."
"I meant to tell you sooner."
I blinked.
"But, the rent.
The lease.
What about me?"
She avoided my eyes. "You'll figure it out."
"You always do." Within 2 weeks, I was behind on rent. The landlord didn't care about my excuses. One eviction notice later, I was back at Mom and Dad's house, dragging my life in 2 suitcases across the same driveway I had once dreamed of leaving forever. And of course, Rachel was there. Watching. Waiting. The smirk on her face when she saw me unpacking into my old room almost broke me. "Back where you started," she whispered as she walked past, her perfume trailing behind like poison.
I told myself it was temporary. Just until I got back on my feet.
But living under the same roof as her felt like being trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from.
And then came the final blow. The breakup. His name was Aaron.
We had been seeing each other for a few months, nothing serious, or at least that's what I thought. He liked me, or pretended to. He made me believe I wasn't invisible. But one night, after a fight, I found out the truth in the cruelest way possible. "Rachel," She walked into my room, holding her phone. You should probably know Aaron's been texting me.
She tossed it onto my bed. He says he's bored with you. I want someone more exciting.
The messages were there.
Plain as day. Him. Ha. Flirty, shameless. I couldn't breathe.
My chest squeezed so tight I thought my ribs might snap. She leaned closer, whispering the same words she always used to end me. Face it, Em. You'll never be enough.
I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just shut down. But inside, something dark was growing. Days blurred together after that.
Work, home, silence. My world shrank to four walls and the sound of Rachel's laughter echoing through the house like a curse.
And then came the family barbecue.
Every year, my parents hosted it. Neighbors, cousins, uncles, all packed into the backyard with folding chairs and too much beer.
Normally, I dreaded it. But this year, it felt worse. Because I knew Rachel would use it. She always did.
At first, I tried to stay invisible. I hovered near the food table, kept my head down, busied myself with stacking paper plates. For a while, it worked.
Until Rachel's voice rose above the crowd.
She was standing in the center of the yard, drink in hand, surrounded by cousins.
And then, clear as a bell, she said it. Did you guys hear Emily moved back home? Again?
22, no job, no boyfriend, nothing.
Just our little family failure.
Laughter exploded around her. I froze. My hands shook so badly the stack of plates slipped, scattering across the grass. Everyone turned to look. Their faces blurred, but Rachel's was sharp, in focus.
That smirk. That joy she got from my pain.
The heat rushed to my face, my chest pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. I wanted to run.
To hide.
To disappear.
But something rooted me to the ground. Because at that moment, something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction again. I stood there, fists clenched, eyes burning into hers. And though I didn't say it out loud, the vow was clear in my mind, sharp as a blade. Next year, I'll return differently. Stronger. You won't see me coming.
And when you do, Rachel, you'll collapse under the weight of what I've become. After the barbecue, something inside me changed.
I didn't cry that night. I didn't bury my face in the pillow like I usually did.
I just lay there, staring at the ceiling of my old room, feeling the echo of Rachel's laughter burning in my chest.
For the first time in my life, I wasn't only broken. I was furious. I realized that no one was coming to save me.
Not my parents, not my cousins, not even the people I once thought cared.
It was just me.
And maybe that was enough.
So, I stopped talking.
I stopped explaining myself, stopped defending myself, stopped wasting words on people who never listened.
Instead, I started listening. Watching.
Taking mental notes like my whole life depended on it.
The first step was money.
I needed control over my own life before I could ever think about Rachel. The dinner wasn't enough. It barely paid for gas, let alone the kind of independence I wanted. So I picked up a second job overnight stocking at a grocery store 2 towns over. The hours were brutal. I'd work the dinner until close, ride a bus to the grocery store, work until dawn, then sleep in short, stolen naps during the day. It drained me, but at the same time, it gave me a strange sense of power. Every dollar I saved felt like a brick in a wall I was building between myself and Rachel.
I didn't tell anyone.
Not even Jenna, who still texted me sometimes with fake apologies about moving in with Derek. I kept my silence, and in that silence, I grew stronger.
The second step was knowledge. Rachel had always been good at keeping people under her thumb by knowing things about them.
Secrets, weaknesses, lies.
She weaponized them. I decided I'd do the same.
Only this time, it wouldn't be for gossip, it would be for war.
I started small.
At family dinners, I kept my ears open. Uncle Mark had a gambling habit he thought no one noticed. Aunt Lisa was quietly separated from her husband, pretending everything was fine.
My mom was drowning in credit card debt.
And my dad, well, his business wasn't as steady as he bragged about.
I didn't plan to use any of that.
Not unless I had to. But I was learning the rules of Rachel's game. Meanwhile, I started paying closer attention to her. She thrived in the spotlight, as always. The perfect daughter, the golden child. My parents praised her every move. She got a raise at her job, new clothes, endless compliments about her future.
But I noticed the cracks. She drank more than she used to.
Not enough for others to notice, but I did. A second glass of wine became a third. A third became just one more. She spent long hours on her phone, smiling at texts she wouldn't share with anyone. And when she thought no one was watching, I saw her eyes, tired, restless, not as confident as she wanted the world to believe. I didn't know what it meant yet, but I kept cataloging it. One night, around 2 a.m. after my shift at the grocery store, I came home to find Rachel in the kitchen. She was sitting at the counter in the dark, a glass of whiskey in her hand, her laptop open.
She didn't see me at first.
I froze in the doorway, hidden by the shadows. Her face was lit only by the screen, and what I saw made my stomach twist.
She was scrolling through photos.
Not family pictures, not work emails. Photos of her with a man I didn't recognize. They weren't innocent. The way his hands were on her, the way she smiled at him, it was obvious.
I didn't breathe.
The name Daniel popped up on the screen. A string of messages filled with things I never thought I'd hear her say. Things about sneaking around, about keeping him hidden, about not letting Ethan find out.
That name. Ethan. Her boyfriend.
The one she paraded around at family parties like a trophy. The one everyone said was perfect for her.
My heart pounded so hard I thought she'd hear it.
I slipped back into the hallway before she noticed me, my mind racing.
Rachel had a secret. A real one.
A scandal big enough to blow up the perfect image she built for herself. I lay awake the rest of that night, staring at the ceiling again. But this time it wasn't hopelessness that kept me awake.
It was the spark of something dangerous. Something thrilling. For the first time, I held a weapon. And Rachel didn't even know it. I couldn't stop thinking about what I saw that night.
Rachel, lit by the glow of her laptop, whispering her double life to a man named Daniel while Ethan slept somewhere thinking he was her world. It was like watching a crack appear in a glass window, tiny but deep enough to spread until the whole thing shattered. For years, she had been flawless. At least, that's how she wanted everyone to see her. Perfect Rachel. The one with the job, the boyfriend, the admiration. And then, suddenly, I saw her for what she really was.
A liar. A cheater. A fraud. I knew I couldn't just sit on this.
If I wanted to take her down, I needed proof. Hard, undeniable proof that no one could ignore.
But I had to be careful.
Rachel was smart, manipulative, always one step ahead. If she even suspected I was onto her, she'd twist the story, paint me as the jealous little sister like she always did.
So I started watching her. Closely.
It wasn't hard. She loved to flaunt her life. At breakfast she'd scroll through her phone, smirking at messages she never shared. At dinner she'd sneak glances at her screen when she thought no one was looking. She claimed she was working late more often, leaving the house dressed up but pretending it was just for the office.
I noticed the details.
Lipstick smudged but not worn at dinner. Perfume too strong for just work. Her heels clicked in the driveway long past midnight.
And then there were the phone calls.
She took them outside, pacing on the porch, her voice low but not low enough when I stood by the window. I caught fragments. No, he can't know. And next week, same place.
I wrote it all down.
Dates, times, words. My notebook became a diary of her lies.
But I needed more than words.
I needed something visible, undeniable. Something I could hold up and say, here. This is who she really is.
The first chance came one Friday night.
Rachel left the house dressed sharper than usual. Red dress, heels, hair curled like she was heading to a party, not work. She told Mom she had a networking event. Mom, of course, ate it up, bragging about how ambitious Rachel was. As soon as Rachel's car disappeared down the street, I grabbed my jacket and followed. I didn't have a car, so I used the bus, heart pounding the whole way. I didn't even know where I was going, I just trusted the timing, the route she always took.
And I found her. She wasn't at a business dinner. She was at a hotel.
I saw her in the lobby, laughing, her arm brushing against a tall man in a suit.
His hand rested on her back like he owned her. They didn't even look cautious. Like they were so sure no one would ever catch them.
I stayed outside, half hidden behind a column, every nerve in my body on fire. Watching her walk into that elevator with him was like watching years of humiliation shift into something sharper.
Power.
I couldn't get inside without being noticed, but I didn't need to that night.
Just knowing was enough.
I snapped a photo with my phone from the glass door, Rachel's reflection on the elevator mirror clear enough to see. My hands shook as I looked at the picture. Proof. Not perfect yet, but a start. The next day, Rachel was all smiles at breakfast, pretending she'd worked late.
No one questioned her. They never did.
But I couldn't stop staring at her, imagining the truth sitting heavy in my pocket.
It made me hungrier. I wanted more. So I got bolder.
When she left her room one morning for a shower, she left her phone charging on the nightstand. My heart raced as I slipped in, bare feet quiet on the carpet.
I knew I had only minutes.
The screen lit up when I touched it, dozens of notifications from Daniel. Miss you already. Can't wait for tonight. Delete this. I scrolled quickly, capturing screenshots with my own phone. Pictures of her in hotel rooms.
Messages about lying to Ethan. Plans for the weekend.
Even talk of moving money, him asking if she could cover until next week.
Money. That word stuck out.
Rachel wasn't just cheating. She was hiding something bigger.
Maybe debt. Maybe fraud. I didn't know yet. But it was another crack in a perfect glass window.
The shower stopped suddenly.
My stomach dropped.
I locked her phone, slid it back onto the nightstand, and slipped out of the room just as the bathroom door creaked open. My heart pounded all the way down the hallway, sweat cold on my neck.
She didn't see me. Not yet. But I knew I had to be more careful.
One mistake, and it would all be over. Over the next few weeks, I pieced together more.
Rachel borrowed money from friends she never paid back.
She used Ethan's credit card behind his back. She claimed she was working overtime, but her boss casually mentioned to my mom at church that Rachel had cut her hours. Lies stacked on lies, so many I wondered how she kept them straight. I became obsessed. Every free moment I had, I dug deeper. Following her, recording her, memoizing her patterns. My notebook grew thick with evidence. And yet, with every secret I uncovered, I felt the risk growing too. One night, I went further than I ever had. Rachel left her laptop open in the living room while she grabbed something from upstairs.
She never did that. Normally she guarded it like treasure.
My instinct screamed at me to stay back, but I couldn't. I slid into the chair, fingers trembling as I clicked through her files. There it was. A folder labeled work reports, but inside, hotel receipts.
Bank transfers.
Messages with Daniel about moving money quietly so Ethan wouldn't notice.
This was it.
The kind of proof that could destroy her. My eyes devoured the screen, taking in every damning detail. I was so lost in it, I didn't hear her footsteps until they were almost behind me. I froze. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. The reflection of her face appeared faintly in the dark laptop screen as she rounded the corner. I had only seconds. I swear I felt my heart stop when Rachel's shadow fell across the laptop screen. My fingers froze, hovering just above the keys. For a split second, I thought I was done. I thought she'd lean forward, see her files open, and rip me apart right there in the living room.
But she didn't.
Her phone buzzed in her hand, and she looked down at it, distracted. She mumbled something about Daniel, though she quickly corrected herself to say Daniela, pretending it was a co-worker. Then she walked into the kitchen without another glance. The moment she was gone, I slammed the laptop shut and slid off the chair, my knees weak, my chest on fire from holding my breath too long. That night, lying in bed, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. As much as I was gathering evidence, as much as I was planning, I was still alone. Alone in a house where Rachel was adored, alone in a family where my voice didn't matter, alone in a fight that was getting bigger than I could handle.
I needed someone. Just one person I could trust.
At first, I thought of Mom. But she'd never believe me. Rachel was her pride, her perfect daughter. Every flaw Rachel had was painted over with excuses, while my smallest mistakes were magnified. Then I thought of Ethan. But he was too close, too blind, too in love.
No, telling him now would risk everything.
He needed to see it at the right time, in the right way, with undeniable proof. That left me with one name.
Sarah.
Sarah had been my best friend since middle school. She knew every scar Rachel had left on me over the years, every humiliation, every cruel word. She wasn't family, so she had no reason to cover for Rachel.
She'd always told me I deserved better. She always believed me when no one else did.
So the next afternoon, I texted her. Can we meet?
I need to tell you something big.
We met at a small coffee shop just outside town, the kind of place Rachel would never step foot in because it wasn't Instagram-worthy. I chose a corner table, my back against the wall, my eyes glued to the door until Sarah walked in. She smiled when she saw me, but it faded quickly when she noticed how tense I was.
What's going on?
You look like you haven't slept in days.
I leaned in, lowering my voice. I found out something about Rachel.
Something huge.
Her eyes widened.
What kind of something?
I hesitated.
The words felt heavy, dangerous.
Once I said them, there was no going back. But I needed this. I needed one person to carry the weight with me. She's cheating on Ethan, I whispered. And that's not all.
She's lying about money, about her job, everything. I've been collecting proof.
Texts, emails, even photos. Sarah's jaw dropped. She leaned closer.
Are you serious?
I nodded.
My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the folder of screenshots, messages, pictures. I slid the phone across the table. She picked it up, her eyes scanning, her lips tightening.
Oh my God, she muttered.
Emily, this is insane.
Relief washed over me.
Finally, someone else knew. Finally, I wasn't crazy, I wasn't alone. But then her expression shifted, something I couldn't quite read.
She set the phone down slowly.
What are you going to do with all this?
I swallowed. I'm going to expose her. At the right moment. I want everyone to see who she really is.
Sarah tapped her nails on the table.
That's risky. What if it backfires?
What if your family turns on you even more? They already treat me like I don't exist, I said bitterly.
What more can they do?
I need this, Sarah. I need to take my life back. She stared at me for a long time, then reached across the table and squeezed my hand.
Okay. I'm with you.
Whatever you need, I'll help.
Her words were like oxygen.
For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt a flicker of hope.
We left the coffee shop making plans.
Sarah said she'd help me organize the evidence, make copies, even store some of it so Rachel wouldn't find it if she snooped on my things. I hugged her tight, thanking her over and over. That night, I finally slept without tears. But my relief didn't last. Over the next few days, Sarah's text started to feel different.
Questions slipped in that made my stomach twist.
So when exactly are you planning to reveal everything? Are you sure Ethan won't find out before you're ready? Where are you keeping the originals? At first, I brushed it off as a concern.
But the doubt grew.
Then came the moment that shattered me.
It was a Sunday afternoon.
The family had gathered at Rachel's house for dinner. Mom, Dad, Ethan, cousins, everyone. I stayed quiet, keeping my head down, until I noticed Rachel looking at me with that smirk I knew too well.
The one she wore before she delivered a blow.
She clinked her glass with a fork, drawing everyone's attention. You know, she said sweetly, it's so funny what some people will do when they are jealous. Some people go digging into other people's private lives, trying to stir up drama. Isn't that right, Emily? The table went silent. My chest tightened. Rachel's eyes gleamed. Oh, don't look so shocked.
Someone told me all about your little project.
About how you've been spying on me, collecting your evidence. Isn't that right?
My blood ran cold. Someone told her.
And then she twisted the knife. It's sad, really, when your own life is such a mess that you have to invent lies about someone else just to feel important. The family gasped, murmuring. Mom's face turned red with embarrassment. Ethan looked confused, hurt. And Rachel just kept smiling, sipping her wine like nothing could touch her. I barely heard the rest of the dinner. My ears rang, my hands shook. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, pitying, judging. But inside, I knew the truth.
Rachel couldn't have known unless someone betrayed me. And there was only one person I trusted. Sarah. The realization hit like a punch.
The one person I thought was on my side had sold me out to the very person I was trying to destroy. That night, I locked myself in my room, tears burning hot down my face, my fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my skin.
I had trusted her. I had given her everything. And now Rachel had the upper hand again.
But as much as it hurt, as much as it broke something inside me, it also lit something else.
A new fire.
If Rachel thought this betrayal would stop me, she was wrong. I was done being the victim.
And next time, I'd make sure no one could betray me again.
That night ended with Rachel exposing my secret plan to the whole family, thanks to Sarah's betrayal.
My so-called ally had stabbed me in the back. But deep inside, I knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning.
The next week was unbearable. Every room I walked into felt poisoned. Every whisper sounded like it had my name in it. Mom wouldn't look me in the eye, Dad told me to stop creating drama. And Ethan had grown distant, like he wasn't sure if he could believe anything I said anymore.
Rachel had won. At least, that's what it looked like. And she knew it.
One evening, I came home from work to find her waiting for me. She was sitting on the couch, legs crossed, a glass of red wine in her hand, that smug little half-smile pulling at her lips. "Emily," she said smoothly, like we were best friends. "We need to talk."
I froze in the doorway.
Every instinct told me to run, but I forced myself to step inside. I set my bag down slowly, keeping my face blank. "What do you want?"
She swirled the wine in her glass.
"You've been busy. Sneaking around, digging through things that don't belong to you." Her voice was calm, almost playful, but there was a razor edge underneath. My chest tightened. "I don't know what you're talking about." Rachel tilted her head, eyes sparkling with amusement.
"Oh, come on. Don't insult my intelligence.
I know everything, Emily. Every little thing you've been up to. And let me tell you, it's pathetic." Her words cut like knives. I clenched my fists at my sides, nails biting into my palms. "You've been lying to everyone, Rachel. To Ethan, to Mom and Dad. You think you're untouchable, but I know the truth." For the first time, her smile faltered, just a flicker, barely noticeable. But then it returned, stronger than ever. She set her glass down on the coffee table and stood up, heels clicking against the hardwood floor as she walked toward me. She stopped inches from my face. Her perfume was overwhelming, sickly sweet, like poison disguised as flowers. "Here's the difference between us," she whispered. "I control the story. You're just background noise. You can scream, cry, throw all the tantrums you want, but no one listens to you.
They never have.
They never will."
Her words hit harder than any slap. Because deep down, part of me feared she was right.
She leaned even closer, her breath warm against my ear. "And if you ever try to challenge me again, if you even think about exposing me, I will destroy you."
I pulled back, my heart pounding.
"Destroy me how?" Rachel straightened up, smoothed her hair, and smirked. "Oh, Emily. Use your imagination. You don't really think you're safe, do you? I have ways of making sure you disappear from everyone's life. Completely. And they'll thank me for it."
My stomach dropped.
The way she said it, so casual, so confident, it chilled me to my core. She picked up her wine again, as if nothing had happened.
"Now, be a good little sister.
Stop playing games you can't win." I stood frozen in place, my entire body trembling. She had just declared war, and she wasn't bluffing. But as much as fear wrapped itself around my chest, there was something else growing underneath it. Rage. Silent, burning rage. I turned and walked out of the room before she could see the fire in my eyes. Because she was wrong about one thing. I didn't hear any background noise. And I wasn't going to disappear. Not anymore. That night, I lay awake replaying her threat over and over. Her voice echoed in my head, dripping with arrogance. "I will destroy you."
But threats only hold power if you let them.
And for the first time in my life, I decided I wouldn't let Rachel's words define me.
She thought she still had control. She thought her intimidation would shut me down. But what she didn't know was that her threat had lit the fuse.
And once the fire started, there would be no stopping it. That was the night Rachel cornered me, mocked my weakness, and promised to destroy me completely. And it was also the night I made a silent promise of my own. When I struck back, she wouldn't see it coming. I didn't sleep much after Rachel's threat. Her words replayed in my head on a loop, each repetition fanning the flames that were already burning inside me. But instead of breaking me down, it did the opposite. It gave me clarity. If she thought I was going to crumble under her threats, she didn't know me at all. Not anymore. The next morning, I got up earlier than usual. My body was heavy with exhaustion, but my mind was sharp. I moved slowly, deliberately, like every action mattered. I poured my coffee and sat at the table, staring at the steam rising from the cup. My hands still trembled, but it wasn't fear anymore, it was anticipation. I started writing. Not a diary entry, not a rant, but a plan. Line by line, I put everything I had gathered about Rachel into a system. Her weaknesses. Her patterns. She tells me. Every time she got reckless, every time she underestimated someone. The pieces of her life she had carefully hidden from Ethan, from Mom and Dad, from the world. I mapped it all out. The key wasn't just to expose her, it was to make sure that when I did, no one could deny what they saw. I couldn't afford to go too fast, though. She was watching me now. Every move I made, she'd be waiting for me to slip. So I slowed down. I stopped confronting her directly. I stopped reacting to her taunts. At family dinners, I smiled politely when she smirked across the table. At work, I kept my head down. I even forced myself to play along when she tried to humiliate me in small, subtle ways. Let her think she had won. Because all the while, I was moving in silence. Late nights became my allies. After everyone else was asleep, I sat in my room, laptop open, combing through records, messages, receipts, anything I could get my hands on. I went back to the photos I had taken of her messages and dug deeper into the accounts I had traced. The more I uncovered, the more the puzzle came together. Rachel wasn't just careless, she was arrogant. That arrogance left trails, and I was following them one by one. At work, I started paying closer attention too. She liked to brag about her projects, about how she handled clients better than anyone else. But I listened carefully, and sometimes, she let things slip. A wrong date here. A half-truth there. I kept mental notes of all of it. And then there were the allies I began to build quietly. Not friends in the traditional sense, I had learned my lesson there, but people who noticed things about Rachel, people who didn't have a reason to protect her. The assistant who rolled her eyes when Rachel barked orders. The co-worker who muttered under his breath when she took credit for his work. Small pieces of discontent that I tucked away. It wasn't about rushing into revenge. It was about building something solid, something that couldn't collapse the second she tried to twist the story. Each small win gave me a jolt of energy. A screenshot saved. A careless comment overheard. A document tucked away. They were tiny, almost invisible victories, but together they started to form a foundation. For the first time in months, I felt control shifting back toward me. But I didn't let it show. I forced myself to stay calm, patient. I smiled when I wanted to scream. I nodded when I wanted to lash out. Every act of restraint was another brick in the wall I was building between who I used to be and who I was becoming. Still, there were nights when doubt crept in. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I wondered if I was in over my head. What if Rachel really could destroy me the way she promised? What if, when the time came, I didn't have the strength to follow through? But then I remembered the look on her face that night, the smug certainty, the way she leaned in and whispered that no one would ever believe me. That was enough to silence the doubt. I wasn't doing this just to hurt her. I was doing this to prove her wrong. To prove that I wasn't invisible, that I wasn't weak, that I had the power to change the story. And then it happened, the moment that told me the storm was about to break. Rachel announced it casually at dinner one night, as if she was talking about the weather. "Oh, by the way," she said, twirling pasta on her fork, "Ethan and I are hosting an engagement party next month. Big one. Everyone's invited. It'll be the event of the year." The table erupted with congratulations, cheers, and clinking glasses. Mom's eyes filled with tears, Dad raised his wine in a toast, Ethan smiled proudly, and Rachel basked in the attention like a queen holding court.
But all I could think was, this was it.
A bold, reckless move. A stage she had built for herself, complete with lights and an audience. And if she thought she was going to walk away from that night untouchable, she was wrong.
So very wrong.
Because that engagement party wouldn't just be her celebration. It would be my opportunity. The perfect storm I had been waiting for. I knew I couldn't wait until the engagement party to begin. That night would be the explosion. But before then, I needed cracks to appear in Rachel's perfect image. I needed her to feel the ground shifting under her feet, even if she couldn't see me standing behind the quake.
The first strike had to be subtle.
Quiet enough to escape suspicion.
Sharp enough to cut. I started with her work.
Rachel lived off the admiration she got at the office. She thrived on being the one everyone looked up to, the one with the answers, the one with the poise, the one who seemed untouchable.
But I knew her cracks.
I had been watching her for months, listening, noting every careless mistake she brushed aside and every time she took credit for something that wasn't hers. There was one project she bragged about nonstop, the Davidson account. She liked to say she had single-handedly secured it, that the clients loved her, that her strategy was flawless.
But I had overheard things.
Late-night grumbles from co-workers, whispered frustrations in the break room.
Rachel hadn't done half the work she claimed.
So I made sure the truth found its way into the right inbox. Not my words, not directly.
That would have been sloppy.
Instead, I pieced together proof, the forgotten drafts with her assistant's name on them, the emails where she ignored client concerns, the timeline that showed she couldn't possibly have handled the workload she claimed. I packaged it carefully, anonymously, and slipped it into the hands of someone who wouldn't keep it quiet. 2 days later, Rachel stormed into the house, slamming the front door so hard the frames rattled. I stayed in the kitchen, calm, stirring sugar into my coffee while she threw her purse onto the couch. "Unbelievable," she muttered, pacing. "Absolutely unbelievable."
I didn't look up.
"Rough day." She snapped her head toward me, eyes blazing.
"Someone's been spreading lies at work.
Saying I didn't handle the Davidson account. That I don't deserve the recognition I've earned." Her voice cracked, just barely, under the rage. I kept my expression neutral, sipping my coffee slowly. "That's awful."
"Who would say something like that?"
She glared at me for a moment too long, and I wondered if she could hear the steadiness of my heartbeat. Then she shook her head and grabbed her phone, muttering about damage control. I turned away before the smile could creep across my face. The first strike had landed. But I wasn't done. The next move had to be sharper. Personal. Something that chipped away at her social image. Rachel's world wasn't just built on her career, it was built on perception. She needed to be adored, envied, respected. I decided to test how fragile that foundation really was. Her engagement party invitations had gone out by then. She bragged about them to anyone who would listen. "Only the best people are coming," she said over dinner one night, flipping her hair like she was in a commercial. "This will be the social event of the year." So I made sure one of those best people received a little information they weren't supposed to see.
Nothing too big yet. Just a whisper.
Ethan's cousin, Melissa, was the perfect choice. She was nosy, gossipy, and absolutely terrible at keeping secrets. I slipped an anonymous message into her DMs, screenshots of Rachel trash-talking Ethan's family in a group chat she thought no one would ever see again. 2 days later, I heard Rachel on the phone upstairs, her voice tight and furious. "Melissa, that's ridiculous.
I never said that.
People are trying to stir up drama before the party. Don't you dare believe it." Her footsteps pounded back and forth, faster, harder. The mask was cracking, but not enough for anyone else to see yet. At dinner, she was quieter than usual. Ethan noticed. "You okay?" he asked gently, resting his hand on hers. Rachel gave him a perfect fake smile. "Of course. Just tired." But I saw the flicker in her eyes. She wasn't sure anymore who was in control. And that uncertainty was the strike I wanted most. Over the next week, I kept applying pressure. A client email went missing from her inbox, redirected without her noticing. A rumor about her temper at work started circulating in whispers. A misplaced document appeared in her supervisor's folder, highlighting errors she had tried to cover. Each hit was small enough to be dismissed on its own. Together, they built a pattern. A shadow hanging over her that she couldn't escape.
And I was careful. Too careful.
I left no fingerprints, no trail. I wanted her paranoid, but I didn't want her sure. One night, I caught her standing in the hallway outside my room.
I could see her shadow under the door. She didn't knock. She didn't say anything.
She just stood there for a long moment, as if she was listening. When I finally opened the door, pretending I needed water, she jumped slightly, caught off guard. "Everything okay?"
I asked, keeping my voice light. Her eyes narrowed, searching mine. "Yeah.
Just making sure the windows are locked." She turned and walked away before I could respond.
That was when I knew she felt it. She didn't know how. She didn't know who. But she knew someone was coming for her. And she was right. Because this was just the beginning. The storm hadn't even hit yet.
The real damage was still waiting for her at that perfect little engagement party. But for now, the satisfaction was enough. For the first time in my life, Rachel wasn't untouchable.
She was human. Flawed. Vulnerable. And she knew it. She just didn't know the face of the person pulling the strings. Not yet.
I used to dream about the day Rachel's world would finally start to crumble. For years, it felt impossible, like she was some kind of untouchable figure floating above the rest of us. But dreams have a funny way of turning into reality once you stop waiting and start pulling strings. By the time her engagement party drew closer, I didn't even need to push that hard anymore.
The cracks in her crown were spreading on their own. The first whispers came from her job.
People at her firm had started to question how much of her work was actually hers. It wasn't just the Davidson account anymore.
Emails were leaking. Mistakes she'd buried were resurfacing.
At first she brushed it off, saying, "People are just jealous." But when her supervisor pulled her into a closed-door meeting, she came home with red, blotchy eyes and snapped at Ethan for leaving his shoes by the door.
That was strike one.
Strike two came from Melissa, Ethan's cousin. The girl couldn't resist drama if her life depended on it. The screenshots I'd slipped her way were spreading like wildfire through Ethan's family. One aunt called another, cousins whispered to cousins, and soon Rachel's name was on everybody's lips. Can you believe what she said about us? Does Ethan even know what she really thinks? I didn't have to add fuel to that fire, it burned just fine on its own. By the time I saw Rachel that weekend, she was twitchy. Her smile was too tight, her laugh a little too loud. At dinner, when Ethan's mother made a subtle comment about family loyalty, Rachel nearly dropped her fork. I watched, calm and steady, while she tried to hold it all together. The unraveling had begun. It was strange. I thought I'd feel pure joy watching her squirm. And I did, at first. But there was also a darker satisfaction building in me. The kind that made my chest tighten, that made me realize how far I'd come since the girl crying alone after the picnic. I wasn't powerless anymore. I was the storm, and Rachel was finally caught in it. But Rachel wasn't the type to collapse quietly. No, she tried to fight back. One evening, I overheard her on the phone, pacing the kitchen. "You don't understand," she hissed. "I've worked too hard for this. I won't let some rumors ruin me. Whoever is doing this, I'll find them, and I'll destroy them." Her voice shook with rage. For the first time, I saw fear behind her eyes. She knew her image was slipping. And I knew I had to push harder. The next strike came through her closest friend, Olivia. Rachel loved to brag that Olivia would die for her and that their bond was unbreakable. But bonds like that snap easily when money is involved. Rachel had borrowed from her too much, too often, and never paid her back. A few screenshots of old Venmo requests, a polite anonymous message that read, "Ask her why she always forgets." And suddenly Olivia wasn't so loyal anymore. Rachel came home furious that night. Can you believe Olivia? She accused me of using her. Me. After everything I've done for her. I stirred my coffee, biting the inside of my cheek to stop the smile. She wasn't just losing her job reputation or Ethan's family's trust anymore. She was losing her friends. Piece by piece, her empire was collapsing. And the party was still weeks away. I could see the toll it was taking on her. Her makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. She snapped at everyone for the smallest things. Ethan tried to comfort her, but she pulled away. At one point I heard him say softly, "Rach, I don't even recognize you anymore." Her voice broke when she answered, "Because people are trying to destroy me. And I don't know why."
I almost laughed out loud. Almost. But then came the moment I hadn't fully prepared for.
The twist I thought I'd control, but fate handed me early.
Rachel found something she wasn't supposed to. It started small. I had been too confident. Too comfortable.
One night, while I was out late at work, she used my laptop. She claimed later she just needed to check the Wi-Fi password, but curiosity was her fatal flaw. She saw a folder I hadn't meant to leave in plain sight. Notes. Inside, she found drafts. Timelines. Proof of things that had just happened to her. Not everything, but enough to make her stop and wonder. When I came home that night, she was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at me with those cold, calculating eyes.
My stomach clenched instantly. She didn't speak at first. She just tapped her nails against the table.
Finally, she said, "Funny thing. I was on your laptop earlier." My chest tightened, but I forced my face to stay neutral. "Yeah." She leaned forward, her smile sharp and terrifying.
"You've been busy, Emily."
"Very busy." I froze, my pulse racing.
I knew right then she'd found proof. She knew it was me.
And for the first time since my revenge began, I felt fear crawl back into my bones. The moment I had been waiting for arrived with the kind of quiet tension you only feel before an explosion. The sun was setting, streaking the sky in orange and purple, and everyone had gathered around the picnic tables. Plates of food half-eaten, drinks in hand, laughter softening into a calm lull as the family prepared for the usual speeches. This was it. Every reunion, Rachel took the spotlight. She loved it, standing there in her perfect dress, pretending to be the glue that held the family together. She always gave the same kind of speech, about tradition, about family, about strength. The kind of words that made everyone clap and smile even though most of them knew she was lying through her teeth. And tonight, she expected the same thing.
She expected to shine.
I stood near the back, steadying my breathing, my hands curled into fists inside my jacket pockets. The folder I'd hidden earlier was now tucked into my bag by the table, ready for the reveal. Months of planning, nights of doubt, years of pain, it all came down to this one performance. Rachel stood, tapping her glass with a spoon. The chatter quieted. Every eye turned toward her. She smiled that polished, rehearsed smile. "Another year, another reunion," she began, her voice clear and commanding.
"I'm so grateful to see all of you here. Family is everything to me.
It's what keeps me strong. It's what keeps me honest." I almost laughed at that last word.
Honest. She really couldn't help herself. As she spoke, I scanned the crowd.
Aunts leaning forward, cousins smiling, even the little ones sitting cross-legged in the grass.
They were hers for the moment. All of them. But not for long.
When she paused for dramatic effect, I stepped forward.
My voice cut through the silence.
"Honest."
The word hung in the air. Heads turned.
Rachel's smile faltered, just for a split second.
I took another step, feeling the ground hard beneath my shoes. "That's what you just said, right?"
"Honest."
She tried to laugh it off.
"Emily," she said sweetly, "don't interrupt."
But I didn't stop. Not this time.
"No, I think this family deserves to know what honest really means to you." The crowd shifted, a ripple of confusion passing through them. Rachel's eyes sharpened, warning me silently to shut up.
But I had waited too long for this.
I pulled the folder from my bag and held it up.
My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't crack.
4 years, you've pretended to be perfect. But perfection doesn't exist, does it, Rachel?
You built your image on lies.
And I'm done keeping them for you.
Gasps echoed. The air tightened.
Rachel's voice dropped low, meant only for me but loud enough for others to hear. "Put it away.
Now."
But I opened the folder and spread the papers across the picnic table like playing cards. Screenshots, bank statements, printed messages. Evidence I'd gathered piece by piece. "This," I said, lifting one page, "is proof of the money you stole from Aunt Marcy's fundraiser. Thousands of dollars that just vanished. And guess whose account it ended up in?" Eyes snapped toward Rachel.
Murmurs broke out.
Aunt Marcy leaned forward, her face paling. "That's a lie," Rachel spat. "She's making it up." I held up another sheet. "And here," Your messages to Ethan's so-called best friend.
Texts you sent at 2 in the morning.
Want me to read them out loud, or should I let everyone imagine what kind of sisterly advice you were giving him? Ethan shifted uncomfortably, color draining from his face.
The cousins whispered, eyes wide.
Rachel's mask cracked further.
Her voice pitched higher. Stop it.
You're twisting everything. I leaned in closer, my words like knives.
Am I?
Or do you just hate that people are finally seeing you for who you are? The crowd was hooked. No one moved, no one breathed too loudly. Years of her control, years of her flawless act, it was all unraveling right here, under the fading light.
I pulled out one last page.
And then there's this. The emails. The ones you sent to the board at work, framing your coworker for mistakes you made. You got her fired, Rachel. You destroyed her life so you could climb higher.
Rachel's hands shook. Her skin had gone pale beneath her makeup. She opened her mouth but no words came out.
I turned to the family, raising my voice so everyone heard me clearly. She's been lying to all of us.
She isn't the strong, honest one she pretends to be.
She's a manipulator, a thief, a coward. And I'm done letting her make me the weak one.
The silence was deafening.
Then it cracked open with whispers, with stares that cut straight into her. Rachel stumbled back a step, her glass falling from her hand and shattering on the ground. Her breathing quickened, uneven. She looked around, desperate for someone to defend her, but no one spoke.
Not this time.
Her eyes landed on Ethan, begging him silently. But his face was blank, torn between rage and betrayal. I watched it hit her, the realization that her kingdom was burning, and there was no one left to put out the flames.
Her chest rose and fell too fast. Her lips trembled.
And then, right there in front of everyone, Rachel's body gave out.
She collapsed. Gasps ripped through the air. Aunts rushed forward.
Someone shouted her name. Ethan dropped to his knees beside her, shaking her shoulders. But I didn't move. I just stood there, my heart pounding, my hands clenched at my sides, watching as the queen who had ruled over me for so long crumbled to the ground. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel small. I felt powerful. The night had finally come.
Rachel was shattered.
And this time, there was no coming back. When Rachel's body hit the ground, the sound was louder than I expected. A dull thud, followed by the sharp shatter of her glass still echoing across the yard. For a split second, the world froze. No one knew whether to scream, move, or breathe. Then chaos erupted. Aunts rushed forward, skirts swishing, heels digging into the grass. Ethan dropped to his knees, shaking her shoulder. Rachel! Rachel, wake up! His voice cracked, desperation bleeding through every word. I stood rooted where I was, my chest heaving, my pulse hammering in my ears. My evidence still lay scattered across the table, white sheets glowing under the string lights like confessions no one could unsee. It should have felt like victory. This was the moment I dreamed of, wasn't it? Rachel, exposed. Rachel, crumbling. Rachel, stripped of her power in front of everyone who had worshipped her. And yet, watching her collapse wasn't triumphant.
It was heavy. Someone shouted to call an ambulance. Someone else fanned her with a napkin.
The family swarmed, their voices frantic, overlapping, panicked.
I didn't move.
I just stared at her, lying there so still, her face pale and her perfect mask shattered into nothing. For years, I imagined her downfall would taste sweet. Like justice. Like revenge. But the truth?
It tasted like ash.
Aunt Marcy glanced up, her eyes locking on me. And in that look, I saw everything: shock, suspicion, and something else I couldn't quite name.
Gratitude? Fear? Judgment? Maybe all of it.
When Rachel's chest finally rose with a weak, shallow breath, the crowd let out a collective sigh.
She was alive, just not the Rachel they had known. The invincible one was gone.
As the paramedics arrived and carried her toward the ambulance, I caught one last glimpse of her eyes flickering open.
They found me. Just me.
And in them, I didn't see hate or fire. I saw ruin. That look followed me the rest of the night. After they drove her away, the yard was silent. No one reached for more food. No one poured another drink. The reunion was over, but no one said it out loud. They just drifted apart, forming small clusters, whispering in voices that carried more weight than screams ever could.
I heard pieces of it as I walked past.
Did you see those papers? How long has she been lying? And Emily, after all these years?
Everywhere I turned, eyes followed me. Some wide with shock. Some narrowed in quiet judgment. Some filled with questions they didn't dare ask out loud. For the first time, Rachel wasn't the center of the family's world.
I was.
But not in the way I thought I wanted. I slipped inside the house, away from the whispers.
My hands shook as I leaned against the kitchen counter, staring at the faint reflection of myself in the dark window. My face looked older, harder,
like I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross.
I whispered into the silence. Did I do the right thing?
No answer came. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the faint echo of footsteps on the porch.
When I stepped back outside, the family stared at me differently.
Aunt Marcy approached, her voice trembling.
Emily, you didn't have to. She stopped herself, searching for the right words. But maybe you did. Her husband tugged her arm, pulling her back.
He didn't want her choosing sides yet. No one did.
The family was split right down the middle, and I had struck the match. As the night dragged on, I noticed it in every glance, every whisper.
Some thought I had freed them from Rachel's grip.
Others thought I had destroyed her unnecessarily. The truth? Maybe both were right. I walked to the edge of the yard, staring out at the dark road where the ambulance had disappeared minutes earlier. My chest felt tight, not with regret exactly, but with something more complicated.
I had won. Rachel was broken.
But as I looked back at the family, fractured, torn, fragile, I wondered if my victory was too costly.
No cheers. No applause. Just silence.
Heavy, suffocating silence. The evidence was still on the table, untouched. Proof of her sins, proof of her lies. But also proof that I had chosen this moment, this night, to bring her to her knees.
And maybe that said more about me than it did about her.
The party lights flickered overhead, buzzing faintly as the last of the family began to leave in small groups. No hugs, no cheerful goodbyes like other years. Just stiff nods, muttered words, a coldness that would linger long after tonight. I stayed until the yard was almost empty.
Ethan didn't say a word to me. He couldn't even look at me.
And in that silence, I felt the sharp sting of what my revenge had cost me, not just Rachel's power, but pieces of the family I had fought so hard to belong to. When I finally grabbed my bag and started down the road alone, the night air was cool against my skin, but inside I was burning. I had imagined leaving this reunion victorious, triumphant, weightless. Instead, every step felt heavier.
And the question that clawed at me wouldn't let go.
Was I too harsh, or did she deserve every second of it?
I walked away from that night with more than just revenge. I walked away with silence.
The kind of silence that makes you hear every choice you've made echo back at you. Rachel was broken, and for the first time in my life, she wasn't the one in control. I was. But control doesn't feel the way you imagine. It doesn't feel like freedom.
It feels heavy. The family will never be the same. Some will blame me. Some will thank me.
And maybe, in a twisted way, Rachel and I both lost. But here's the truth I can't escape. I chose myself. After years of being the shadow, the quiet one, the punchline, I finally stood up.
And maybe that's what power really is.
Not revenge. Not destruction.
Just the courage to stop letting someone else write your story.
What would you have done in my place? Would you have forgiven her, or let her fall?
Tell me in the comments, I want to know what you think.
Don't forget to like this video if you felt that rush of justice, and subscribe if you love stories where the underdog finally rises. Because this isn't just my story. It's every story of someone who's ever been mocked, underestimated, or pushed aside. And maybe, it's yours too.